Welcome back to Pre-Reading Success Strategies, and welcome to week 2 of our theme on vocabulary. So last week I shared strategies that focused on helping you help build your child's vocabulary, and this week we're going to focus on how to organize it, because as children's vocabulary grows, so grows their need to organize it in some way. People need to organize their world, and so do children. So just imagine what would happen if we didn't live in an organized world. Imagine what would happen if you asked your child to dress themselves and their clothes weren't organized. Their shirts were stored under the kitchen sink, their pants were found in their father's tool chest, their socks were under the living room sofa, and maybe their underwear was stored in the toy chest. So that would be 4 different kind of groups of information they would have to remember where all these items were. So that would be really taxing, not to mention being extremely time consuming. But you already help your child organize their world by keeping all of their clothes together in their dresser. And I'd be willing to bet that if your child is old enough to dress themselves, that you probably have their socks and their underwear stored in the same drawer. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're both kinds of underwear. And this is not something that you overtly explain to your child, but just the fact that you are helping them organize their world, they start to internalize this type of information. So just like they internalize where their clothes are kept, they internalize all the vocabulary associated with the bathroom: towels, face cloths, soap, toothbrush, toothpaste. And so if they are introduced to a new vocabulary item, for instance in the bathroom, like dental floss, and they already have the vocabulary of their toothpaste and toothbrush, when they're introduced together, they will begin to form an association among the toothpaste and toothbrush and the dental floss, because they're all used, of course, in maintaining good dental hygiene. And so when they get introduced to this new vocabulary, and their brains need to remember this new vocabulary item and what it's called, they're going to get stored in a similar place in the brain, so that categorization and these associated skills will also help in recalling that vocabulary. So, it helps a lot with memory, both storage and recall, and just makes things run in the brain more efficiently. And of course, none of this happens overtly. It definitely is happening subconsciously, but just the very fact that their world is organized in some way definitely goes a long way towards helping them with that internal organization. So they've got this internal organization, and what the important part is that you can help them with is by mapping language onto that internal organization. And I'll just explain a bit about what I mean by that. So how do we go about teaching these organizational skills in a conscious way? What we do that by teaching what's called categorization and association skills, which is just a fancy way of saying teaching kids how to recognize similarities between objects and being able to explain those similarities, such as the similarities between a knife and a fork. Okay, so it's very similar to that old Sesame Street song, "One of these things is not like the others." And in order to be successful with that task, or with that song, a child needs to be able to recognize similarities among the three objects, and also recognize why the fourth one does not fit with those other 3, because it doesn't share some important characteristics with those other 3 objects. Such as in our example here with the 3 animals and the car. The child recognizes that the 3 go together because they're all animals, and that the car doesn't go because it's not an animal, it's not furry, it's not alive, it's not a pet. Okay, and kids do this largely unconsciously, of course, or subconsciously, and they recognize that the car doesn't go, and then what we can do is we can help them learn to articulate why those things why those three go together and that the fourth one, the car, doing this, we're helping them strengthen not only their vocabulary skill, we're introducing not just the animals' names, but we're talking about the group that it belongs to, that those are animals and that the car is a vehicle, but we're also helping strengthen their reasoning skills. So their ability to explain why those three objects go together and the fourth one doesn't. These skills are critical not just for language arts, but also for math and science. So all those subjects require children to be able to classify objects on one level or another. In English, it's compare and contrast. In math and science, it's grouping objects because of similar features. So in science, like classifying leaves in different ways or animals in different ways. Important for later academic success. So being able to explain the similarities among objects, be able to explain it in an organized way using appropriate vocabulary is also an oral language skill. And remember that that's important for becoming a good reader, because that oral language skills are necessary for becoming a good reader. So children are getting a lot out of this type of activity and out of developing this type of skill. So strong reasoning skills are important to reading for another reason. Strong reasoning skills are important for story comprehension, because as children get older, they need to be able to understand that not all information in a story is explicitly stated. Okay, so for instance, a child, when they get older, may read a story about Bobby, and in the course of this story, Bobby helps his mother weed the garden, and then he and his friends go out front to shoot baskets in their basketball hoop, and then when they get tired of that, they hop on a bus to go to the local rec center to play badminton. Okay, and one of the questions that a child might encounter, a comprehension question that a child might encounter about this story is, well, what would be an activity that Bobby might engage in the afternoon? Would it be to take a nap, or to go ride his bike to his friend's house, or to watch an episode of Dora the Explorer? Okay, so in order to be successful at that question, child needs to be able to infer that because Bobby engaged in these types of activities in the morning, like shooting hoops with his friend and hopping on the bus and going to the rec center, he is of a certain age. He's old enough to be able to take the bus without his parents, and he's got a certain amount of independence, and therefore he likely wouldn't take a nap in the afternoon because he's old enough that he doesn't need a nap, and he likely wouldn't be interested in Dora the Explorer because he's not a girl and he's not 5 or 6 years old. Okay, so none of that information may have been explicitly stated in the story, but you can infer that information based on the types of activities that Bobby was engaged in. So there's a lot of reasoning that goes into story comprehension. Working on reasoning skills early on definitely helps prepare them to become good story comprehenders, which is also going to help them avoid that 3rd or 4th grade kind of wall that some kids hit. Reading instruction shifts from learning to read to reading to learn. Okay, so what I'm going to do for you right now is demonstrate a couple of activities that you can do with your children that help strengthen these categorization and association skills. And I'm just going to kind of talk you through a couple of examples that I do with my nieces. So for this activity, I went around the house and chose a bunch of common household objects that they were already familiar with, and what I did was I pre-selected objects based on certain characteristics. So I got tape and glue. They obviously have something in common. 2 different kinds of balls, 2 different utensils, like soap and Purell, soap and a washcloth. And I lay out 4 objects. I'm going to lay 4 objects on the table, and you'll be able to see that. And then I give them one of the objects, an object that has one of its pairs on that table. Okay, so that's the basic setup of the game. In the first example, watch how each girl chooses a different object to go with the one that I give them, and just listen to how their explanations differ. Okay, here we go. All right, so we are here. We're going to show moms and dads at home how to play our matching game, right? Yeah. And you girls came up with a really good name for our Go Together game. So why don't you explain what we decided to call it?
Milk and cookies.
Milk and cookies, okay.
We decided to call our matching game Milk and Cookies because milk and cookies go really good together. And this game is all about trying to find things that match, and milk and cookies match, and so it totally makes sense to call our game the Milk and Cookies game.
Okay, so our first round, this one is for Tara. So Tara, I'm going to give you this brush, okay, and you get to pick what it goes with. What goes with a brush the best, do you think, of the items on the table?
That.
The fork? Okay, and why do you think those two go together the best?
Because they both have things poking out of them.
Okay.
And they're both black.
Uh-huh.
And they both have a long... And they're both long.
They both have like a long handle?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 3 reasons they go together. Okay, so how about you pass the brush to Jasmine, and now put the fork back on the table where you found it. Good. Now, Jasmine, what do you think? What do you think goes with the brush the best?
I think the brush goes really well with the comb, because you can use both of them to brush your hair.
There you go. So 2 different, but both good reasons why they go together. One brush and comb, and one with the brush and the fork. Really great. Okay, I'll take the brush back. So in this first example, Tara, the younger girl, chose to match the brush with the fork. And she did this based on physical properties of both items. So they're both black, they're both long, and they both have kind of sharp points on them. So she focused on the physical characteristics. I'll just drop my comb here. Jasmine, the older girl, focused more on the function of the objects. So they were both used to groom your hair, and that was her explanation. And you'll find that this is pretty common with kids of various ages. So younger children will tend to focus on physical characteristics, and as children get more experience with this activity and they mature and their brains mature, they will tend to focus more on the functions of the objects. So in this second example, I'd like you to pay special attention to Jasmine's answer, the older girl. And notice how her answer changes over time. At the beginning of the example, she gives one type of answer, and then when she's given some time to think, she comes up with quite a different type of answer. You may need to do something similar with your child. You may need to give them extra time to think, especially if they like to say, I don't know. So if they say, I don't know, I recommend you just tell them something like, I'm going to give you some time to think about that, because I'm pretty sure you can come up with an answer. And don't let them off the hook. Just wait for them to give you some kind of response, and then you can kind of take it from there. Okay, let's watch and see what they do. This one's going to be so tricky. Okay, do you know what this is?
A thermometer.
It is a thermometer. Thank you. A bar of soap, one of my rings, and this happy face bouncy ball. Okay, so Jasmine, you wanted a tricky one, did you? Okay, so Jasmine, here is a ruler.
I know what it goes really well. Can I pick more than one to go with?
How about you pick what you think is the best one? Let's start with that.
Okay. I know. I'm picking between these two. They're both white like this, and they're both kind of long.
Yeah. But what do you think is the most important part? Like, do you think it's more important that they're both the same color, or something else?
I think these two go together, but because they're both really thin, and they're both white and a few different colors.
Okay. Let's see. And what do you think, Tara? What did you think about what goes best together? What's our milk and cookies here?
I would think the same.
Yeah, okay, and how come you think the thermometer and the ruler go together the best?
Because they're both long
Mm-hmm.
and they're both for
No, it's okay, Jasmine. She can come up with her own.
they're both for I don't know what this is like.
Yeah, you could. Okay, do you have another idea?
They're both for telling you something. This tells you how long something is, and this tells you what temperature you are.
That's right. We get information from them. You're right. They do both tell us something. And another way we can say that is they're both for measuring things. So the thermometer measures your temperature and the ruler measures length. There, you guys were on the right track. Excellent. And that was a really tricky one. Did you notice that near the end she came up with a really good explanation because she was given a lot of time to think about her answer and what she wanted to say. And so that's why giving them lots of time is really helpful. Research has shown that the more time you give a child to give you an answer, the more thoughtful answer that they are going to give you. Another thing that I did for Jasmine was once she gave me her explanation, the best one she could think of, I gave her a vocabulary word that that would have been good for her to use in her explanation. So I gave her the word measuring because, of course, with the thermometer and the ruler, they both measure things. So I gave her the word measure just as an example of how to use that type of word in the explanation with those items so that next time she got an item that was used to tell us something, as in her words, she could use the word measure if it were appropriate. So the next two examples involve showing Tara a strategy that she can use when she's stuck trying to figure out which two items go together. So in the first example, I show her the strategy and how to use it, and then in the second example, she uses the strategy on her own when she gets confused. So let's just watch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so Tara, this one's for you.
I don't know.
Well, I haven't given you something yet. We have our glove back.
Yay. That's
so
hard.
Now, what do you think goes best with the glove of these four items?
I know. I don't know.
Well, you think about it for a minute.
I don't know. Ooh, nice glove.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice and fuzzy. I don't know.
Well, think to yourself. Does the pencil sharpener have something in common with a glove?
No.
No. Do scissors have something in common with a glove?
No.
Does a little mini light have something in common with a glove?
No.
How about
Oh, I know.
how about a ring?
The ring.
Yeah.
Because you both wear them.
Yeah, and where do we wear them?
They're both meant to wear on your hand.
There you go. You got it. Okay, so here we have a little washcloth. I'm going to give that to you. So you need to decide, what does it go best with?
Doesn't go with that
Okay.
or that.
Okay.
This.
Okay.
The
Tell
bar of soap.
the bar of soap and the washcloth. Okay.
Because they're both for washing.
That's right.
And they're both for using to wash dishes or cleaning stuff.
So in the second example, Tara was able to use the strategy on her own without any prompting from me. Now she is in kindergarten, near the end of kindergarten, and she was able to do this on her own. But if your child is younger, if they're 3.5 or 4, you may need to help them with this strategy and do it with them a few times before they start to catch on to using it by themselves. And then what you can do is start them off using the strategy and then back away and see if they finish on their own without your assistance. So for this last example, this is an example of what I'd like you to do at the end of your little play session. I'd like you to end on a really positive note, so make it something that's really easy and really obvious. Okay, let's watch them. No.
It's easy.
This one's more reasonable. Okay, here you go. So here we have a floss stick.
I already know.
Yes, you know, and now everybody at home knows.
This one and this one.
So what do you have there? You've got
A toothbrush
uh-huh.
and a dental floss go really well together because they are both used in your teeth to clean your teeth.
There you go.
That was easy.
Was it? Okay, good. Good stuff.
You should do it just a little bit.
So that last one I gave them, as you can see, was pretty obvious, and that's what I'd like you to do. So the other thing I'd like you to do is decide ahead of time how many rounds you're going to do with your child, and you can ask your child to help you figure out how many you'd like to do, whether it's 3 or 5 or 6, and then whatever you decide, stick to it. Because there's a very fine line between enthusiasm and frustration, and you don't want to keep going and then suddenly they've had it and then they kind of leave the game on a sour note. So make sure you finish on a really positive note and don't push. With however many rounds you decide to go, make sure the first one and the last one are the easiest and the middle ones are the most difficult. Okay. The last thing I'd like to show you is just a little variation on this game. So I'm going to let you watch what I do. I give them a whole group of objects on the table, and then I give them their pairs, but it's all mixed up and they need to sort out which one goes with which, and then they explain their choices to me. And I'd like you to especially listen to Tara when she explains her pairing of the knife and the fork. So here we're starting off with the soap, a red marker, the granola bar, a knife, and a bouncy ball. And I'm going to give you these items: a fork, a red Hot Wheels car, a cheese string, this funny bouncy ball, and a washcloth. So I want you girls to take all these and match them up with their milk and cookie match. What do you think?
These two,
Yeah.
these two, these two, these two, these two.
Okay. Good. Okay, so Tara, can you explain one of your milk and cookies matches? How come I noticed that you put the car with the red marker. How can you put those two together?
This is red, this is red.
Excellent.
Red
Okay.
car, red pencil.
Excellent. Jasmine, you explain one now.
I thought these went together really well because they're both balls.
Okay. Okay, Tara, now your turn.
These went together well because these go together well because they're both black and they're both utensils.
Excellent. They are both utensils. Excellent word. Jasmine.
These went together really well because they're both used to wash.
So did you notice how Tara gave an explanation that involved both features and function? So first she talked about the physical features, how they were similar, and then she talked about the function of the knife and fork, and she even told me the group they were in, the category. They're called utensils. So if your child puts together two objects that are in the same group, for instance, a strawberry and a pear, but they don't give you the word fruit, then that's something that you can tell them. You can say, they might say, well, we eat them. They taste yummy. And you can say, oh yeah, they're both different kinds of food or fruit. And giving them those category names will also help strengthen the way that they organize their world. So I encourage you to give this strategy a try this week. Have some fun with it, and let me know if you need help adjusting the activity if your child is younger. And please leave me a comment. Let me know how it went, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.